Hey, what's up? Welcome to the podcast. This is Ed Dye. Here we're going to talk about horror and paranormal and things and everything here, there, and in between. Make sure to follow us on social media, on Twitter and Facebook. It's Ed Dye Podcast. If you want to get a hold of me directly, it's Is Ed Dye Dead at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, which is also the name of the website, iseddiedead.com. You'll get the links for the stuff that we discussed on the show. And today we're talking to a friend of mine who I've known for a while, comedian Glen Tickle, the man behind Jerk the Magazine. He's been doing tons of online comedy stuff recently. The man is a comedian, a nerd, a weird dad, and big into Buckaroo Banzai, which is going to be some of the stuff we discuss, along with his, some of the views on horror and paranormal and things that happen here and there. So without further ado, let's talk to Mr. Tickle.
I've been doing more live shows through a booking agent, and I'm like, hey, man, can you just send me, like, the beginning of every week and, like, a list of all the shows you have me scheduled for that week? And he's like, don't you already have them on your calendar? And I'm like, yeah, no, I do, but, like, it would genuinely really help if just, like, Monday mornings I just had, like, an itinerary, because otherwise I'm worried I was going to, like, miss one, you know? Especially because I was doing a ton of virtual shows. Mm-hmm. And there would be ones where I'm doing like 3 or 4 in a day. I'm like, I genuinely can't keep the details straight of who I'm doing a show for. I just know what time I need to be on a Zoom link. So I really need, like, just send me a list with links that I can click. And he's like,
just give me the link and the details of what the hell I'm doing that day. And
yeah, like right before earlier this morning, I had to do a call for a corporate gig that I'm doing. Every corporate gig I do wants to do like a meeting with me beforehand, but they all just want the same exact things. They just want me to tell them that I'm not going to be like dirty or controversial, and they want to tell me a little bit about their company, even though I don't care and it's not going to affect what material I do at all. It's like I'm not going to write new jokes for your company. I'm just going to show up and do whatever I want. And I don't know. Like, if I find out what basic industry you're in, I might have a slightly related bit I could work in, but I'm not like writing a new show every time I do a corporate gig.
Well, I was going to say, I've already started recording, and I might just leave in some of this chatter already.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I hit record 2.5 minutes ago. So,
well, I could do the whole intro here, or I'll just pre-record it and put it in. It doesn't bother me. But what you just said made me think of the fact of the corporations want to know what you're going to talk about and this and that, and then what comes to mind is Mel Brooks in History of the World and not reading the room and doing his joke about the king.
Yes.
You haven't fallen into that situation, have you?
No, I did have one where I did the pre-show meeting that companies love to do. It was like the 3 bosses for this company and me on a Zoom call. And the one guy was like really like begging me to make fun of him. Like, he's giving me like examples of other stuff that people have said to him. I'm like, oh, I mean, I don't like roast people in my act normally. But yeah, like, I don't know, I'll make some light-hearted comments about your bad hair or whatever. And then during the show, I did, and he like got genuinely upset. Like, I thought he was like pretending at first, but he was like, he seemed like really upset by the joke. I don't remember what the joke was, but like, it was pretty lighthearted. It was like, I pointed out how badly he kept bringing up that he wanted me to make fun of him. And I think it was a corporate gig, so it wasn't like, yeah, because that gets you horny. Like, I implied it, but it wasn't like that dirty. I was like, oh yeah, this guy loves it when like he just wants to be humiliated or something. I forget what I said, but he was not happy about it. And I was like, you spent half that phone call telling me to make fun of you. You can't now be upset that I took a gentle swipe.
It's funny because I'm thinking to myself, what material was he giving you? He's like, talk about my male pattern baldness. You know, I have erectile dysfunction. Talk about that. And then you talk about what? Something that's not that bad, and he gets upset over it.
He was very focused on his hair. And
was it real?
I think he said this was a while ago. I think he said that everyone thinks it's fake, but it is real. And like that's what you would say if it was fake. Like that's not you're not convincing me by saying it more times, you know?
How hard is it to do, especially something like that, you know, where the guy's like, make fun of me, but when it's a virtual thing, I mean, I would assume it's much easier doing it in person because you can look right at the person and pick up more things. But when you're virtual and you're sharing with multiple people, I mean, does it become that much harder?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't do a lot of it normally in my act. Like a lot of comics will do like crowd work and they'll kind of pick on people. I don't like doing that because, I mean, I'm just not that interested in the crowd. Like most crowd work is like, hey, what do you do? I don't care what you do. Other like jobs are boring. I don't want to hear about how you're an accountant or whatever. Like it's not, I don't have an accountant joke ready to go. I mean, I'm a narcissist. I don't want to learn about other people. So I usually don't do it. But corporate shows, they do. They're like, the boss normally be like, oh, you can like make fun of me a little bit. But then they'll give you like an outline of what they're okay with you making fun of. I did one and the guy sent us an email with like, there was like a PDF of like the breakdown of how the show was going to go. And it included a section that he had labeled humor parameters. And I'm like, are you a robot? That's not how humans talk. And it was like all the things we were allowed to make fun of him for.
And then page 5, protocol if comedian goes off topic.
Yeah, I'm going to make fun of the fact that you call these humor parameters, you weirdo. Like I don't care that you're an avid runner. That's not fun. The fact that you write memos like you're a cyborg, that's way more entertaining.
Well, not even that. What's coming to mind is, do they have a meeting to make these notes before they, you know, they all get together and actually spend time to figure this out before?
Well, this was the most involved like pre-show stuff because it wasn't just stand-up. We were like hosting an event for them. So it was like I wasn't just doing a set. Like it was way more interactive, and it was virtual, which is hard because, you know, there's a weird delay if people's internet connection's not good. If you try to like interact with them directly, it just shuts everything down. But it was a wild. We had to do, I think it was like 3 meetings before the thing to figure out
how they wanted the event to go. Yeah.
I'm like, can't we just do stand up? Like I already know how to do that. We were judging. It was a holiday party. They were doing gingerbread houses. And we were like judging the event, but it was like how on like British Bake Off, the hosts will like go around talking to people. That's what they wanted, but it was over Zoom. So we're like, that's not probably going to work that good. So we tried it, but it ended up being a lot of fun, but doing it over the internet made it way more harder.
Oh yeah. I mean, I did one where the delay was so bad. I had delay so bad. I was like, so how are you today? And I literally counted about 20 seconds before they finally responded.
Yeah. I don't do a lot of crowd work normally, but on Zoom, there's no point because people don't necessarily know you're talking to them. They might not even really be listening, like especially because a lot of the Zoom shows I do are corporate. People have to be there. Like it's not.
Oh,
it was like mandatory fun. They didn't decide. Oh, I want to go to a comedy show. It's my boss says I have to watch this idiot for 45 minutes. So they're not like necessarily engaged. And I'm good at comedy, so like I usually win them over by the end of it. But I get people might be hesitant if they're signing into a Zoom call at 1 p.m. because their boss says they have to watch comedy now. Like that's
you got to use that hashtag now. Mandatory fun.
Yeah, that was the Weird Al album a couple years ago.
Oh, was it really?
Mandatory fun. Yeah.
I'm not a big Weird Al. I enjoy the stuff. I find it weird, I guess, because
it's in the name, yeah.
As someone that's big into music, I don't know what it grates on me after hearing a comedy song 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I think as somebody who's way more into comedy than music, like I can't think of if there was like a musical artist that I really loved that like if he did a parody of it, I would be like, oh, how dare he? Like I don't think I feel that strongly about any bands. Harvey Danger is my favorite band of all time, but if Weird Al wanted to do like a cover of or a version of Flagpole Sitta, I wouldn't be like, oh, he's offending my sensibilities.
Like the song
I would
itself
love
is
it.
almost comedy anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, I would love it if Weird Al did a bunch of Harvey Danger songs. Not even necessarily like parodies, just a straight up cover album.
He should
it.
do, actually. He should do one of those. Show people that he actually is a serious musician. I'm kind of on the other side of what you're talking about. I'm more music oriented than I am comedy oriented. As much as people keep, I've been asked over the years when I'm going to do stand up, and I have to explain to people, being funny in the way I'm being funny is conversational funny. Someone has to be talking to me.
I sat in. My friend is teaching an intro to stand up class right now, and I sat in last weekend to like give the new students like advice and stuff. And the one point I always make with new comics is like everybody's funny around their friends because like it's situational, like you're comfortable, you have shared experiences you can draw from. But the job of a comic, and I'm paraphrasing Pete Holmes, paraphrasing somebody else, and I can never remember who said it originally, but he's like, everyone is funny with their friends, but can you be funny at 8:00 on Friday? Like you have to just do it. And, you know, I get on stage a lot of the times and I'm not in a great mood necessarily. I don't feel like making jokes offhand, but it's my job. It's literally my job. Like there's people who are plumbers. They're like, I don't want to plumb today, but you have to. Like you just go do it. Paula Poundstone talked about it in an interview because she got like Paula Poundstone like pretty famously wears I will lovingly say ridiculous outfits on stage.
Yeah.
Partly because she was like big in the 90s, but like these giant like bright suits and so like stuff you would not necessarily wear off stage. And she talked about it in an interview. She's like, it's like a uniform. Like if I put this on, I know, okay, like I am going to do comedy now because I have my big blue suit on or whatever. And in that interview, she talks about she will get like a suit for a tour and like that will be her suit for that material. And she's like, it makes me comfortable. Like it's like I'm going to work when I put this thing on. Like even if I'm in a bad mood, the process of getting ready and putting on this suit like tricks my brain into thinking like, all right, it's time for comedy. Like whatever else is going on, don't worry about it. Just go out and do the jokes.
That's I've never thought of it like that in general, but then because you said it's her, I'm like thinking about her outfits. I'm like, yeah, I don't think you could be normal if you were wearing what she wore on stage anyway.
Yeah, that's part of it. Like I have a jacket that I usually wear on stage. It's like I don't commit to a uniform as much as she does, but it's like, all right, that's it happened mostly because it travels well without getting wrinkled. Like I can throw it in a suitcase. And so I would just wear it a lot on stage and I just got used to it. And then I heard that interview with her and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to try it out. I'm going to like stick to wearing this jacket on stage, see how it goes. And it does. Like there've been times where I will try to I'll go to like an open mic. I'm like, I'm not going to get dressed up to go to an open mic. I'm just going to wear what I'm wearing. And it is like a little harder to kind of get into the groove of like really like, all right, I'm doing my job. I'm doing comedy right now. It's just, I'm just a guy in a bar for some reason.
What about your, don't you have that like waterproof shirt?
I do. Yeah. Oh boy, I should remember the brand. So I can give them a plug, but
I was wondering if you would. If I asked, I was wondering, is he going to even remember what I'm talking about? When's the last time you even wore it?
This weekend. I have two of them. So there's this company and collar. They the shirts are waterproof, and they reached out. I think because before the pandemic, I did this joke where I say that my baby wrote a joke, and the joke is she just lets water fall out of her mouth when she's drinking. And I can't do that on stage anymore in 2022. You can't just spit on your audience.
Oh my God, I never thought of that. That's right. Wow.
Yeah. But I think they reached out because of that joke. And I was like, yeah, you can send me a shirt. I'll make some videos. So they did. They sent me a shirt and I actually really liked it. So I ordered another one, and that's the one of those shirts and that jacket that I mentioned has been like my default going on stage outfit lately.
Jackets, if like some company came up to you and were like, hey, we got these jackets with these bright colors and crazy patterns.
No. I mean, unless they're like throwing a lot of money my way.
Even if the jackets were free?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want a free ugly jacket. Like I'm good on suit jackets. Like I'm not hurting for choice when I go to my closet. So if they're like, we'll give you a free suit jacket, but it's incredibly ugly, like, no, I don't want that. If it was cool looking, I would definitely take it.
Should look into some nerd jackets, see if any companies are out there that want a comedian helping them.
When I was writing for Geekosystem, when that was around, that was when like Oppa-suits and those kinds of brands started, where it was like you could get like Pac-Man patterned suits.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've seen people with some of those.
Yeah. I think it was Oppa-suits was the one who reached out, but they're like, hey, we have these like nerd suits. Can we send you one? Oh no, it might've been, I think it was when I was at Laughing Squid, because they had like a policy about not accepting things. So I had to turn it down, but I'm like, yeah, I would wear a Pac-Man suit for sure.
I'll after this talk, I should get your measurements. Maybe I know where there is one.
Yeah, I feel like if I bought I bought an ugly Christmas jacket because I was doing like a lot of corporate holiday party shows, so I got it for that. And I think it was one of theirs.
I was never one for the ugly sweaters.
But I had to find like just a vaguely winter themed. It couldn't be expressly Christmas. I had to get like one with just cutouts of evergreens on it. Because a lot of companies have switched from doing Christmas parties to like holiday parties to be more inclusive, and good on them. But it limited my ugly jacket choice. The problem was I bought it because I thought it would be stupid and ugly and like a fun thing to wear at a comedy show. I look genuinely really good in it. I put pictures up on Instagram over the holidays because I was like, I think I'm just gonna wear this around. I look great. It's like this soft red with the green trees. It makes my eyes pop, and it looks great.
I'm gonna have to look it up. It sounds roughly familiar in my head, and I can't imagine it. I know my nephew was threatening because I was never into those ugly sweaters, but he was threatening to get me the Halloween like horror versions of them.
Yeah, there's quite the variety in ugly sweaters these days. I don't think I have any. I think I have one that has like a ugly sweater print on a T-shirt.
Oh, okay.
I think I have a Star Wars one that somebody got me, and then I bought a pizza one because pizza's the best food.
I just did another podcast with a friend of mine where we were discussing pizza and pizza toppings, and this past weekend I just went to my friend's house with my nephews, and it turns out their daughter likes pizza without cheese. My nephew likes pizza without bread. Sauce.
Maniacs.
And then I got the one nephew who eats it normally, and I tell him about that, and he just turns to both the other kids like, what is wrong with you two?
Yeah. It's weird. I've been doing a lot of pizza jokes on stage lately, and it really is just because I think about it a lot. I've known my wife since we were 12 years old. We've been together a very long time, but sometimes she will still be like, hey, what do you want to do for dinner? A pizza. I want to get pizza for dinner every night, all the time. Anytime you ask me what I want to eat, the answer is I would like some pizza, please. It is my favorite food. I think about it constantly.
So you've never answered her or yelled at her like, why are you asking me?
No, I just I'm like, I still want pizza. It's not changed in the 26 years that we've known each other. I still just want to get pizza.
So I was going to switching gears here, being that
switch it up, baby.
I mean, I was going to say, now that we talked enough about you, no, I want to get to more stuff about you too, but I wanted to ask, because being that it's a horror paranormal stuff, what is your stance on horror? Do you like it? Do you watch it? Because I just recently was reading something about somebody and how they said they're not a big horror person themselves. They're not into it. And then also, what is your stance on paranormal stuff?
Horror, I'm not actually a huge horror fan. I watched a lot of it when I was a kid. And then in high school, I worked at a video store, and we were allowed to rent, I think it was like 5 videos a week. And I would frequently, like, we would just get 5 Saturday morning and then go to my friend's house and watch them all. And like a lot of those were horror. I'm trying to think. We watched a lot from like Blue Moon Productions, which was like Dollman versus the Demonic Toys.
Full Moon.
And yes.
And I don't know why we got so focused on them specifically. Anything we could find by them, we would watch and like generally just kind of laugh at. And part of it is because even from like a young age, I knew how movies were made. Like anytime there was like a behind the scenes special on TV, which is now like DVD features, but like when we were kids, you know, there would just be a special on Discovery Channel about movie special effects that anytime I could watch anything like that as a kid. Yeah, I would watch that. And then, so then if I watch a horror movie, I'm like, yeah, I know Freddy Krueger's not real. Like, I'm not afraid of him. So I liked it when he got like Freddy in particular, like he's supposed to be scary in the first one. And then by 2 or 3, it's just kind of a parody of itself where he's like cracking more one-liners. The kills are a little more ridiculous as opposed to the first one. It is just like straight horror. And I think that happens with a lot of the franchises. Like eventually you got to send them into space. Like you can only kill so many people on Earth. You gotta figure out a way to get Jason on a spaceship.
I don't think Freddy's been in space yet. They need to write that one.
Well, you can get him there. You know, astronauts sleep too, so
there's your in.
But he goes after teenagers, so we need to come up with a teenage astronaut storyline.
Ooh, we can reboot Space Camp.
Do you remember that
with
movie?
Freddy Krueger?
Where the kids at Space Camp get launched into space for real?
That, but also Freddy Krueger is there because one of them is one of the kids from Elm Street. Goes to space camp, brings Freddy. They go into space, and then there's also a robot that helps fight Freddy because robots don't dream. Robots can take Freddy down.
You left me speechless on that one. I don't know what even to say.
That's nobody ever thinks how we stop Freddy. Robot. Or no, or they wouldn't be able to fight him because they don't dream. It's unclear. I don't know. But I watched a lot more horror when I was young. I think as I'm getting older and like now I have kids, so like I get genuinely upset watching more things. Like the last Bond movie, there's a little girl in it, and I don't want to like spoil it, but like she's in danger for parts of the movie. And I'm like, if anything happens to that little girl, I'm walking out of this theater. Which I don't think before having kids I would have really cared that much. Or like in Avengers Endgame, Tony Stark's daughter looks a lot like my daughter. So I was like, well, I will burn this theater to the ground if anything happens to her. So then I was way more emotionally invested in that movie because of that than I think I would have been beforehand.
How old are the girls?
My children are 9 and 3.
Ah, okay.
So when Endgame came out, they were like roughly the same age. Yeah, but paranormal stuff, I don't believe in any of it. I don't think any of it's real.
You sound almost apologetic for it. I'm doing a paranormal podcast.
Yeah, well, because I know. Well, because I know a lot of people do, and I don't want to be like, hey, dummies, it doesn't exist. It's just like, I don't know. I've never seen anything that's convinced me that ghosts are real. And I feel like if ghosts were real, we would see a lot more of them all the time, you know? Like, there have been so many people who have been alive and who aren't anymore that just, I feel like there would be ghosts all over the place. We'd be tripping over them.
Yeah, you would think there should be way more hauntings and ghost experiences going on if they're real and there's that many people who have died. Especially then there's the beliefs, you know, the parameters of what needs to happen for you to become a ghost. Like you have to have unresolved issues or unfinished business. I'm pretty sure plenty of people died without having everything resolved.
Yeah. Cryptids and stuff I'm more into because that it's just like, oh yeah, we just don't know what that animal is yet. You know, like except for Bigfoot. I don't believe in Bigfoot.
I was about to ask you about Bigfoot.
Well, Bigfoot, It's great because the origin of the Bigfoot myth is like literally a Scooby-Doo episode. There was, I forget the town in Washington. This is like a mining town, or like they were doing construction in the woods, and like all these kids were coming and messing with the construction equipment. So a guy made big feet and like stomped around and then went to the local bars and was telling everybody that he saw a monster so that people would leave his construction equipment alone. And like, that's 100% the plot of a Scooby-Doo episode. We're like, oh, you darn kids are messing around. I'm going to scare you away by pretending to be a monster.
What you described
really
is almost
stuck.
the same thing. The storyline behind the, oh my God, the crop circles.
Yeah. That's another one where like, yeah, no, the guys who started crop circles admitted it and said how they did it. And like, I don't know why we're still considering that a real thing that's happening because of aliens.
I've heard they have crop circle parties these days. Like people just meet up in the middle of the night and just pick a random field and go make crop circles and then wait to see if the news picks up on it the next day. But they don't hide the fact that they're making them anymore.
Yeah. It seems like it would be fun. Like to go out with your friends in the middle of the night and squish some corn. Yeah, that sounds great. Let's go do it after this.
I'm just more concerned is how do they get these intricate patterns when they're out there doing it in the night and quite honestly probably half drunk when they're doing them.
That's why I think that's well, because the thing is like if you take them in aggregate, it's this big elaborate pattern, but also like if you just scribble on a piece of paper for a little while, it'll look like this big elaborate thing that you've created, and it is just like you just did it as you went along.
This is true. So I'm going to throw some cryptids at you. So you said Bigfoot. No. What about
no Bigfoot?
Chupacabra?
Probably. I feel like that one is what's the one where it was like a dog that washed up on a beach, but because it didn't have hair and it had been sick, everyone's like, it's a monster. It's just a dog. Chupacabra is probably that, but if it's like a type of dog we didn't know that loves to suck on goats, sure. Like I don't see why that wouldn't exist.
I don't know why that sounded dirty to me. Suck on goats. When you say it like that, it
that's
sounds
what it
more
is.
sexual.
It's a horny little dog that likes to suck on goats.
But which is funny because the original description of Chupacabra is always some kind of lizard creature. In some pictures they draw him as like a little 2 foot, 3 foot lizard looking man with red eyes and scales.
I always picture like a mangy dog, but I also don't think about it a lot. So.
What about very close to the Bigfoot, the Yeti?
That one I'm more inclined to believe than Bigfoot because the area that it's in is way less populated and harder to get to. So like there's a lot of Bigfoot reports in Pennsylvania. I live near there, but like there's people all over most of Pennsylvania. So it wouldn't, we would have found him if he's in there. So I don't know, but I'm not hiking around the Himalayas every day. Yeah. There's apparently a lot of Bigfoot sightings in Michigan because I was just there over the weekend.
Oh yeah,
and,
that's right.
There was a lot of like Bigfoot signage in the town I was in. So I guess I assumed it wasn't just a coincidence and that everyone just loves Bigfoot up there. But who knows?
Well, also very similar to Bigfoot, if you head south more, you get the skunk ape.
Yeah, I mean, there's like the local Bigfoot version a lot of places. Skunk ape, because that's like when you get into the Florida Everglades or whatever. Like, again, that's like rough terrain that's not as densely populated. So something could hide out in there a little bit easier, I think, than the woods, you know? Like,
what about the Mothman?
The Mothman is probably the most fun because people, for some reason, in the past like 2 or 3 years, have really latched on to like Mothman fan art, but they make them like adorable. So I'm pro Mothman. The movie confused me because when I saw it, I didn't know that it was a thing that people thought was real. So I didn't know like the history of the Mothman when I saw that Richard Gere movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't know what this is. The story didn't make a lot of sense. It seems weird that he showed up one time to be like, hey, that bridge is going to fall down. And then nobody ever saw him again. Like the origin story seems like there's stuff missing, you know?
Which is funny because before the bridge falls down, there's no real mention of them. After the bridge falls, suddenly there's like, hey, wait a minute. There were other disasters where I think people saw him too, but it all comes to light after that initial bridge falling.
Yeah. I think that's how a lot of paranormal stuff happens. I think it is people trying to connect dots because that's what human brains like to do. Like we like to see a pattern. We like to believe things happen for a reason. So if just a bridge falls down, then, you know, that's unsettling because, you know, we don't want to think that just bridges can fall down for no reason. We want there to be a giant Mothman involved to make us feel better about the random nature of the universe.
I mean, I've seen pictures where they're trying to connect them to the 9/11 towers falling.
Oof. Hard pass. No thank you, Mothman conspiracy theorists.
I'm sure whatever they took a picture of is probably just a pigeon just darting the hell out of there. Like, no, I'm not staying. I'm out.
Yeah.
What horror movies have you seen that, you know, present or in the past, that resonated with you either on a comedic or scary or traumatizing level?
I think I mentioned it already on the call. Dollman versus the Demonic Toys. It is such a weird premise for a movie because it combines these two already pretty wild premises for a movie. So Dollman, he's a tiny man with guns, and he's like mad that he's so little. And then Demonic Toys is exactly what the title implies. Toys possessed by demons. And then they run across each other, and it is, I just remember, like, we watched that movie a lot in high school as just an example of, man, this is so hilarious because it takes itself pretty seriously, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah,
because it wasn't there's a lot of horror that is like, isn't it silly that we're doing this? But this, if I remember correctly, is played pretty straight. They're like, aren't these toys terrifying? No, not really. They are just weird little puppets. Because that was, I think it's the same people behind Puppet Master, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, actually, I was about to say, I think at one point they started overlapping of it. I think they did Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys. I don't know if they ever did a three-way with them.
I don't know. Well, I mean, if I remember correctly, Dollman comes out on top and not a lot of the Demonic Toys survive. But again, it's been a while since I've seen it. But we would watch, because I went to school for college for film, which I was always really interested in. So like in high school, we would watch all these movies, and I would do it thinking like, all right, I'm going to learn from my video store job. I'm going to rent all the movies I can watch and like learn how to make movies from them. And the horror ones in particular were very educational because you can produce horror is frequently like a low budget endeavor. Like people are making the most of what they can with not a lot of money. So when I say like we watched it and we're laughing at it, like I do have a lot of respect for horror filmmakers as a genre because of like what they can achieve with limited resources. So it's not necessarily a genre I enjoy watching, but it's like, yeah, like it's clear that people really care about it. I think more horror movies than other genres, for example, are like really done with this love for the craft that I don't think a lot of other movies get, because it's people who want to make a movie because they love movies. And I think a lot of those people go into horror because you can produce it fairly cheaply. There's a huge market for it. Like if you want to make a movie without a lot of money, if you make a horror movie, you can probably sell that horror movie to somebody, like not for a ton of money, but you know, somebody will want to watch your horror movie. If you want to do like an independent, low budget, you know, indie drama, that's much harder to get eyes on. But if you're like, hey, there's murders in a cornfield, people are probably on board.
Yeah. There's another podcast I listened to, and they were actually just discussing that, how a lot of people sometimes go into horror, and they say, you know, for the love of movie making, and even just for the love of horror, but they're like, oh, bless their hearts, they're trying so hard, but they don't always understand what it takes to actually make it horror. Like you said, making a drama, for some people, even just the hard part of making a drama is the fact that can we get good enough actors to act this out? But as far as horror, just scream. Look at the camera and scream.
Right. Like it's I mean, I'm not that good of an actor to really say what type of acting is easier than the other, but I feel like it is easier to pretend that you're getting stabbed to death than pretend that you're emotional about some minor plot point in a drama movie.
You know, like
you can writhe around and scream pretty easily.
There is a bit of news I want to get your take on it. I mentioned two podcasts ago, and then I mentioned the last one. There's a new Dracula movie coming out. It's actually, I think they officially just started filming. It's part of the official Universal Monsters. I want to say multiverse, but universe.
They're still trying to make that happen.
They're making it happen, but I think it looks like they're going off and not particularly following the main characters. Basically, they're making, you know who Renfield is? Mm-hmm. They're making a Renfield movie starring Nicolas Cage.
Okay. I have not heard this news. I really like Dracula the book, and like the old horror, like the Universal monster movies, I watched a ton. Those I loved, like as a kid. But again, like it wasn't like, oh, this is so scary. It's like, this is, I don't know why I got so drawn to that stuff. Like Frankenstein, the book, I don't think I read until college, but I had seen all the Frankenstein movies as a child, and I'm like, yeah, Frankenstein rules. This guy, and like Monster Squad, he's like the fun, lovable monster. I've been pro Frankenstein my whole life, I think. And then I read the book in college. I was like, oh, this is actually like great. There's a Hallmark Channel version of Frankenstein that is, I would say, very true to the book. And when you watch it, you realize why the other movies aren't that true to the book, because it makes for a great book. But on screen, here, like watching the monster talk for 20 minutes at a time gets a little tiring. But I have a big place in my heart for Frankenstein, and if you're gonna get comments like it's Frankenstein's monster, look, it's in the book, right? He considers himself Frankenstein's son. So
yes,
he would
it's a surname.
Consider himself a Frankenstein. Like he calls Dr. Victor, he's not a doctor in the book. He's just like a med student, but he calls Victor his father. So he, in his own mind, is Frankenstein.
Yeah, like if you were to make a monster, I'd refer to it as the Tickle monster.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like all my little monsters that I'm going to create would consider themselves my children, including my two actual children. I wrote a thing for Geekosystem years ago about why it's okay to call Frankenstein, and it got probably top 10 most hate comments on anything I'd ever written, of people telling me that I'm wrong and that I'm an idiot for not understanding Frankenstein. And I'm like, I think I understand it better than you, which is why I'm writing this, to make the point. Like, I brought receipts, like I quoted the book. I'm like, this is why I think I gave him the first name Adam in that article, if I remember correctly, because he compares himself to Adam from the Bible. So he doesn't expressly give himself a first name, but it's either Adam or there's another book that he talks about, like really relating to the main character. Oh, The Sorrows of Young Werther. So, but like Adam's an easier name, so I went with that.
Well, it's funny. I know the book itself, the original book, has another name, because I was just watching
The Modern Prometheus.
Yeah, because I was going to say I was actually watching a recent version. I think it's called Victor Frankenstein, starring James McAvoy and Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's the McAvoy and Harry Potter one. Yeah.
And they refer to the creature as Prometheus a couple of times.
Yeah. Well, they shouldn't, because Victor would be Prometheus.
Yeah, because he's the one that's doing it, and then the monster is just a victim
like
in all this. Technically,
the fire in the Prometheus story, Prometheus. The monster's not Prometheus, but I saw that one too, and I don't remember very much about it.
I just watched it like a week ago. I'm trying to remember more. There was a certain word that they said when they describe when they first make the monkey, like Frankenstein creature thing. Homunculus, I think is what they called it.
See, that was always my I brought it up when I read the book in college. It was for an English novel class, and I made the point. I was like, "Why did he start with a 7-foot monster? Like, if you're trying to reanimate life, go small first. Like, do a proof of concept before you start sewing body parts together. You know, like start with a cat or something more manageable."
Well, my thing is also he's doing these are all corpse body parts, and this isn't exactly a time when we had, when there was freezers to keep things in. So my thought is always like, all right, so you reanimated, but didn't it stink before you brought it back? Okay, I know it's alive now, but wasn't this flesh dead like, not too long ago? Is there a smell that?
Well, that's why they needed.
So that was around when the book was written. Was like it coincided with like sort of the birth of modern medicine,
Where
med schools needed bodies to dissect to better understand the human body, but people didn't want that to happen. So getting them was like there's a real dodgy bit of business. Like there were people just straight up stealing corpses and delivering them to medical schools, and the schools were like, no questions asked. Here's some money, friend. And so this like grave robbing became like a pretty profitable business for a while. It was kind of a fact of life at the time where people were like, oh yeah, sometimes people dig up corpses and do weird medical experiments on them. So when the book was written, it was around the time, I forget the doctor who did it, but the French scientist who was like running current through dead frog legs and stuff to make them twitch. That was going on, and people were stealing bodies to bring to medical schools. So a lot of just like what was happening in the world directly fed into what became Frankenstein.
I'm remembering, I think there's a movie that I think it is Simon Pegg, that stars about him as the guys that are grave robbing, but I'm not remembering if I'm thinking the right name. Burke and Hare, or are those the Highwaymen?
something like that.
No, the Highwayman one is Plunkett and McLean.
Okay, so then it is Burke and Hare, I think. Yeah,
I think it's Burke and Hare, which is I believe based on true events. Yeah, like probably exaggerated for the movie, but
They were real people.
Burke and Hare I think I've only seen once. Plunkett McLean I've seen a bunch of times, but that's not horror. It's just a movie that I really like.
Somewhere in my head they both get mixed up.
Yeah, I could see. I mean, yeah, I guess they're similar, like time period. They're both period pieces. I don't know if they're the same period because it's been a while since I've seen either of them.
Two men together. Now when I'm describing it, it sounds like something else. It's a period piece about two men together.
Two dudes in time.
Almost sounds like I'm describing a porno. Is that a thing? Period piece porno. I have to look that up now. Not that I need to see it. I'm just curious. Out of curiosity.
You have to assume it's out there.
If not, maybe we can corner the market. Not that we have to be in it. I don't think that.
Yeah, you and me. We're gonna star in it.
No, please no. All right, fine, but you have to wear one of those nerd suits. You got to wear your nerd suit and your waterproof shirt.
Awesome. Yeah, that's going to come in handy just from like a practical standpoint. You're not going to want anything sticking to the shirt. Ideally, you want it to slide right off.
It'll be a period piece porno where no clothes get taken off.
Just two fully dressed men in love.
And that's it. Well, it's a period piece. So back then, even just holding hands was,
Yeah. Yeah, it's just you and me in very fancy suits holding hands in a parlor.
And then the dirtiest part is when you look in my eyes and go look down and then you show me a little ankle. and then I go, put that away.
How scandalous it is.
I do a very scandalous ankle.
It's like, you have no stocking. What is wrong with you?
I'm not currently. I've got very short socks on at the moment. So
are you cold? I know you have your what is it? Your shed out back where you do all this. I'm like, there's heating in there, right? Yeah. You're not out there you're like ankle.
I do. I have a little heater. It's kind of chilly in here at the moment. The heater flips the breaker sometimes, so I turn it off, and it's noisy, so I turn it off when I'm doing calls, but I was running it before the show to keep my little ankies nice and warm. I should have put longer socks on before I came out here, but I didn't plan ahead.
Are you at least wearing pants?
Yes. Yeah. No, it's just very short ankle socks. That's the only thing I've got on.
I don't know why. For some reason, we said ankle socks. I was just imagining you in like shorts.
No, just the socks. I'm just sitting here nude in a booth in my shed with little socks on my toes.
It's a good thing this is an audio chat and not video. Did you see what is it? Get Out?
Yes, that I really liked.
See, it's interesting, and this is another reason I wanted to bring you on, because Jordan Peele, known his whole career mostly for comedy, and does this. What do you think about the correlation between comedy and horror and the connection with it? I know it's like such a thought-provoking question.
I think you're right. I think there's a connection there, because like a lot of horror movies do have like a comic relief element at some point. Like I remember when Scream came out, that was pretty big in high school. We would watch that a lot. And again, like there's genuinely funny moments in Scream, but it's not a comedy by any means. It's just a pretty good horror movie with some jokes in it sometimes. And I think it's because if you're doing horror, you either have to like fully commit to that this is scary. Like you got to do something like Hereditary, where like this is a scary movie meant to scare you, and you leave scared, and you go home and you're scared. And then if you want to do more of like a holistic like experience, you're like, all right, there's scary parts in this, but we also will like give you a break every once in a while, because this guy's kind of wacky. So when he shows up, you get to have a fun laugh for a little bit, but then someone gets stabbed. And I think kind of moving from one to another can make the extremes a little more extreme. Like to go from a very funny moment into a very scary moment could be like a tough thing to pull off. But I think if you do it well, it's going to make that scary moment scarier. Or to have something funny happen when there's in like the middle of something terrifying can make the joke land a little harder because it's unexpected. It's true of like really tender moments in comedies because you're not necessarily expecting them. So then when they show up, you're like, oh, like it's nice because it's not just one note of like how everything that happens in this is ridiculous. And you're supposed to laugh at it. Like some of this, will make you feel feelings.
What you said makes me think of two separate things. You ever see Night of the Living Dead, the remake from 1990?
No. I've seen the original.
So you know how they're at the beginning, they're at the cemetery, and he's like, oh, look, they're coming to get you, Barbara. And he goes, look, there's one of them now. And it turns out being the actual zombie.
Yeah.
In the remake, you see them, and he goes, look, there's one of them now. He's coming for you. And then she's walking up to the guy, and then the guy does grab the girl, and she screams, but then he's not a zombie. He's like an old man, like who works in the cemetery, and he's going like, I'm sorry. And I just recently saw that with my nephew, and he's laughing like, oh, haha, that's not the zombie. And then right before the guy could say anything else, an actual zombie busts out of nowhere and just grabs the girl and knocks her to the floor. It's funny how you said that, because it makes me think how I show that to my nephew, and he literally was in the middle laughing. Oh, look, the old man, and boom, the zombie comes out. He literally screamed and almost jumped out of his seat.
Yeah, because I think if you're doing something like a remake, like that's a pretty big moment in the original. So when you're going to remake, you do kind of have to think, are we going to do the Gus Van Sant shot-for-shot remake of Psycho and, not change anything for some reason? Or are you going to try to subvert the expectations of people who are watching this because, they're going to be familiar with the source material, they're going to remember that moment. So you can either give them exactly what they expect, which could be kind of boring, or, you mine that opportunity by you change it a little bit. Everybody expects it to be a zombie, and then it's an old guy, but then you give them the zombie right after. Like, I think I haven't seen the remake, so I don't know if it is good, but like that seems like a good use of a remake, It was. I liked it. It was good. They did a nice update, especially on the Barbara character, because in the original, she's
the whole movie. And then the remake,
Yeah.
they modernize her where at some point in the movie, she stops being this female that can't do anything and actually starts fighting for herself. And
That's
then,
good. Give her some agency.
and then the other thing you mentioned, the whole switching back and forth, like with comedy, you said, and drama.
I think it makes both of those emotions play out better than they might otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I like things that kind of combine those elements. Like I like comedies that have more dramatic moments. I mean, comedy is the best thing out there. So any other genre is improved, in my opinion, by having some comedy in there. But it can be overdone, I think. If it's supposed to be horror, but it is too silly, like that, then I don't dig it. But you have some comedic relief every once in a while. Like I watched the Macbeth, the Denzel Washington one that just came out, and Stephen Root plays the porter in it, and he's so genuinely good in that role that like this is the hardest I think I've laughed at a Shakespeare thing in probably my entire life, because Shakespeare's not that funny. Like, we all learn about it because great work or whatever, but there's jokes in Shakespeare things, but we're so far detached from like that use of language, and a lot of the stuff that the plays are about don't super resonate anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But to just have a drunk guy answering the door in the middle of the night, and he's like a little annoyed that he has to do it, but he's drunk, so he's still having a nice time. Like, yeah, that's great. And I believe that is the first documented knock knock joke. Is the porter scene in Macbeth.
I haven't seen it. Maybe just for that one scene, I'll take it. I'll go and I'll watch it.
He's really good in it. The witches, those scenes are really good. Since this is a horror podcast,
People might be down for that.
it's not terribly scary, but they got the actor playing the witches. I believe it's one person. Sometimes it's just them, and then it'll be like they'll be standing over a lake, and you'll see in the reflection it's all three of them.
Oh,
But I think it's the same actor. And I believe she's like a contortionist because she's doing like weird body poses and stuff while doing these monologues. And it is, again, like we're all kind of used to the standard, you think of the witch scene in Macbeth, and it's all there are three witches standing around a cauldron stirring it. We all kind of get what that is. So this was like, again, like a nice kind of new take on it. The rest of it, like all the actual Macbeth stuff, I thought was kind of boring. But it had really nice moments in it. Like I liked the witches scenes. The porter scene was really funny. Overall, like it was a lot. I had a much easier time understanding the story of Macbeth watching this version than any other version that I think I've seen. Because a lot of the times you're kind of trying to translate your own language when you're watching Shakespeare. You're like, I know what these words mean individually, but like how they're being put together, I don't understand anymore. So you're trying to figure out what's happening. But this was, I think, so well acted that it was much more interesting than some other Shakespeare stuff that I've seen. And I say this like I genuinely enjoy Shakespeare, and I watch a lot of it.
See, what you say reminds me of the comedian Ari Spears.
Yeah.
The joke he does about how he says he loves watching old gladiator movies, especially with the British accents, and how he says, he'll say, let him know that Xerxes is a kind and benevolent king, and then he's in the audience just thinking, who got diabetes? What? Yeah, you're right. The wording sometimes, I remember watching, I don't remember if it was Hamlet or Macbeth. I think it was the one with David Tennant. And I'm watching something, and then at one point I realized,
he did Hamlet.
And at one point he says something, and in my head it slowly translates. Like maybe 5 minutes later, I'm like, wait a minute, that was like a yo mama insult joke.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of like jokes in Shakespeare stuff that just don't play anymore because like audiences don't understand them. I was in A Midsummer Night's Dream in high school My freshman year, I was Aegeus, like the dad in it, and I was the youngest looking high school freshman you could possibly like. I didn't hit a growth spurt till like junior year, so they're like, "Here, small baby, you play a old man," and I'm like, this seems like not a good idea, but I didn't know a lot of what Aegeus says is supposed to be funny. And I'm like, no one told me. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just memorizing things and then yelling at them because you told me I'm supposed to be mad. I mean, I was 14, so my acting skills weren't necessarily up to snuff. But now I'm like, oh, like some of this, it couldn't be jokes. Because he is just this fuming mad guy. Like I think I might be misremembering this because I've not read or seen the play in a while, but I think he is the comic relief. Like there's a lot of weird stuff that happens in that, but I think it's supposed to be funny how mad this dad is. Like he's so upset because his daughter doesn't want to marry the right guy, and it's like, calm down, buddy. You need to relax. And he's all worked up. I don't mind standing in front of people, and I know I can write jokes because all like the shorts and stuff I did in college were comedies. So I'm like, I'll just go do that, and then I'll get hired to write something, and then I liked doing that way more. I was like, this is so much easier. If you make a movie, you write a script, it can be literal years before you find out if an audience likes it.
Yeah.
It's a long time. Like I did a show called Improvised Stand-Up last night where title explains it, right? Like you get a prompt and then you just work off the prompt. So that's great because I'm literally thinking of things in the moment and saying them and finding out if people think they're funny immediately. Like I also have ADD. Like I love that I don't have to plan ahead that much, It's funny you said that. I remember actually discussing with a friend of mine where we're like, well, what if having said how, comedy is something everyone does, but stand-up comedy is different. We had discussed doing like improv comedy. Mm-hmm. And then we were discussing about, well, what if we do it kind of like a horror version of it? Like people come and we're telling them, oh, we're going to improvise what's going to be said and everything, but we're giving them a rough, like, let's say you get a group of people. Mm-hmm. You put them on set and you basically tell them, here, you are in the world of Night of the Living Dead, but now go improvise and be funny about it. Yeah. Friends of mine were doing a Lovecraft themed improv act for a while, where they come out like in robes chanting. And then, cause like typically improvisers ask the audience for a suggestion. Mm-hmm. So they would ask an audience for something that they were afraid of, and they would kind of improvise comedy horror scenes about whatever the thing is that the person is afraid of. I can't remember the name of the act, but it was Lovecraft inspired horror comedy improv.
Lovecraft is very specific though too.
Yeah. The Great Old Ones, I think, is what they were called.
But it's funny because that within itself is already a set of rules in a universe that's got its own very specific kind of set of rules, and then that's extremely interesting. Where did this take place?
Mostly in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, but I think they went and did a couple improv festivals with that act. Oh God, I'm trying to remember. It was my improvised Wikipedia co-host John Lunger, and either my friend Justin Passano or my friend Evan Williamson. I don't remember which one.
Somebody I know.
Well, because the thing is, like with improvisers, they are frequently pairing up in different groups all the time and coming up with different names. Like every 6 months, my improviser friends like change what their team name is and who's on it. I can't keep it straight.
Is it something you'd ever do?
I don't like doing improv. I have a lot of improviser friends that they keep trying to get me to do it. The closest thing, like my podcast is Improvised Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. I think when we had the idea, because my friend John, who I co-host it with, is an improviser, and he's very good at it, and we were trying to think of something that we could do together, but he knows that I didn't like doing improv. So we came up with this idea, and we thought like, oh, it'll be fun because we'll just make up a bunch of dumb facts. But then he started keeping score of like, so the idea is we have listeners send in suggestions, and then we look at them when we start the recording, and then we rewrite the Wikipedia page for that suggestion without doing any research. Because we thought we can just make up dumb facts. It doesn't matter. But then he started keeping score. He's like, we'll see if we did a better version of than Wikipedia did, then we get a point. And I'm weirdly competitive about stuff. So I'm like, well, if you're keeping score, I want to win. Like, I don't want to just make up facts. I want to get the right answer. Because a couple of them were things that I happened to know a lot about. Like, one of the first suggestions we got was skyscrapers. And I'm like, yeah, I know a fair amount about the history of skyscrapers. I think we can legitimately win this one. I was like really trying to spout off facts. It's become like a running joke now that I can't just let it go and just like, John will frequently try to do a joke or something fun. I'm like, no, we need to be serious. We need to remember, what year was the Eiffel Tower constructed? This matters. And he's like, I don't know, the year 10. Who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. But I will get very competitive about any dumb thing, really.
What's the score currently?
I don't know. The problem was he kept the score on a Post-it on his monitor in his office, because that's where we recorded. And then the pandemic hit, and then he couldn't get into his office for 2 years.
Oh, gee.
So he's like, I don't remember what the score is. And we at the end of each episode, we decide if we won or lost, or if it's a tie.
Have you done something like nuclear something or cold fusion?
Did we do cold fusion? We've gotten some that are pretty wild. I think we got the Large Hadron Collider one time. And I'm like, yeah, I've worked as a science writer. Like, I know about the LHC, baby. And I don't remember because part of the problem is some Wikipedia pages are things that we know a lot about, but they're so fleshed out. I think the first episode we did was on cardinals. And we got some basic facts about cardinals in there, but bird people really filled out the cardinal Wikipedia page. There's no amount of information we could provide in a half-hour podcast that was going to rival that. But then other times, there's nothing on the Wikipedia page, so we win just because we said more than two things, you know? It's wild. But yeah, because it's suggestions from the audience, so sometimes it is something that we know a little bit about. Other times it's something we've heard of but don't really know. A few times it's been one time we had a listener suggested ibogaine, and we're we've never heard that word before. We have
neither have I.
Idea.
What the hell
we have
is
no idea what that is. Yeah, it's a fun show to do. We've done a couple live ones, which is, I think, closer to traditional improv. When we do them live, I do give up completely on the idea that we're going to win, because when there's an audience there, my stand-up instincts kick in. I'm like, oh, I need to say something funny to get these people to laugh. When we're doing the podcast and it's just me and John, it's no, I need to prove to the internet that I'm a smart boy who knows things. I need to do a good job. But when there's an audience there, I'm yeah, I don't know, I'll just say whatever dumb thing will make these people laugh. But sometimes the comedy is I'm getting very upset because I don't know what year the Eiffel Tower was built or whatever.
It's funny, you brought up the Hadron Collider.
Yeah.
How much of it do you know? Because there is an actual odd kind of, I guess, paranormal-ish story connected to it, and then I know there's a couple of theories connected to it.
I mean, I don't know any paranormal stuff. I know it's been a while, but when I was working as a science writer, there was a pretty steady flow of CERN news coming in, but it's been a while. My brain's bad, so I don't remember a lot of the details. Yeah, I know the basics.
Because I know there's the multiverse
I'll run you
theory.
Through some basic particle physics.
Do you know that one? The multiverse conspiracy. That's the word I'm looking for. I don't remember. There's a conspiracy theory with it that they believe that when it was turned, that it opened us up to the multiverse, and that's why so many things people believe have been going downhill ever since they started the machine up.
Are you asking me if I believe that?
No, just have you heard it? I mean, you can tell me if you believe it. I'm just saying, have you heard that?
I don't believe it. I remember people being very concerned because one of the things that happens sometimes when you smash particles together at incredibly high speeds is they make little black holes.
Mm-hmm.
But like the mass is so small that they dissipate instantly. But everybody was like concerned that they're going to turn the LHC on and then it's going to cause a black hole and it's going to swallow the whole Earth. And we're like, well, it's not gonna. But I mean, people, when they were doing nuclear testing and stuff, they were concerned. They're like, if you detonate a nuclear bomb in the atmosphere, it's going to light all the oxygen on fire and then we're all going to die. And we're like, it won't do that. But, you know, sure, I guess you could be concerned. Or, you know, if you do it in the ocean, it's going to cause a chain reaction and vaporize all the water and then we're all going to die. I'm like, there's a lot of reasons why like nuclear explosions can kill you, but neither of those are them, so don't worry about it. But I remember hearing people concerned about the black hole thing. I was doing science writing at the time, so like the comment section would frequently, people would like share their fears of the LHC in our comment section, and we would have to be like, no, you don't have to worry. It's not going to cause a black hole that would devour the Earth. I'm like, well, how do you know? Well, because math is the answer. Like, the particles that they're firing at each other are so small. Like, a black hole will go away if you fill it. It's just so dense that you're not gonna. But if you make a teeny tiny one out of one proton that you smash
throw
into
some Skittles in it and you're good.
Yeah, like there's not enough energy or mass there to keep it going.
You know the Mandela effect?
Yeah. Is that so? People think the LHC caused the Mandela effect and not. Look, I get it. I also don't want to admit that I'm wrong ever, but it is such
so
a
you're like,
wild,
so maybe.
It is such a wild claim to me for people to like get a fact wrong, like the Berenstain Bears, and be like, well, obviously I can't be wrong. So what happened was a rift in the universe happened and we all got transported because God forbid I don't know how to spell a book from my childhood, you know? Like it's so wild to me. Like just
what you said though, that's actually what it is. Yeah, the belief is that they turned the machine on and our universe and the closest universe smashed together, and it's such our universes were so similar that it's only the tiniest little things that are slightly different, and that's where the Mandela effect comes in.
I think I get turned off on specifically the Mandela effect because, like, even in fiction, I don't love multiverse stuff. Like, I saw Into the Spider-Verse, it's fine, but I know, like, or no, Into the Spider-Verse was incredible. The No Way Home, that one was fine. People are losing their minds over it. I don't love that now every Marvel movie is a multiverse thing. Because it doesn't, like, they're like, oh, we're going to go to Earth 2. And it's so very similar, except Superman's got a blue suit instead of a red one. I'm like, yeah, but it would be so much different for most of the universes. We did an episode of Improvised Wikipedia about zombies.
Oh.
I'm
going to have to look for it.
It's a good one because we knew, I don't remember if we won or tied, but, like, we did a pretty good job. Like, we knew a lot about the history. But John also admitted, he's like, yeah, I don't like zombie stuff. I'm trying to think. Like, I watched the original Night of the Living Dead in college, like, in a class. And then we talked about, like, some of the influences and stuff. If I can tie something together to something else that I'm familiar with, I get more interested in it. So Night of the Living Dead, I'm not a big zombie fan, but then you talk about some of the influences in how the movie was made, and you're like, oh, like that part is interesting to me. Like, I don't love the zombie stuff, but then you like find out that the arms breaking through the barn door and like grabbing people was inspired by like Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast. You're like, oh yeah, like sure, that's a neat fact to learn. Like, that makes this more interesting.
The black and white one?
Yeah. So the candlesticks were arms, like, reached through the wall. It's a really weird movie. I think it's on HBO Max. It's a great movie. Like, it's I guess sort of horror because he's, you know, all made up.
Yeah, it's kind of, I've seen some of it. It's a bit creepy.
Yeah. It is. Like, it's parts of it are unsettling. Like, parts of it are, like, genuinely very beautifully done. and it's a great movie to like learn about the making of, because it was like post-war, so there's like limited film stock. Everybody is just like emotionally exhausted because of the war, and he's like, no, we're gonna do a fairy tale movie, and everyone's like, I don't know if that's what we're doing anymore. And it was kind of like how after 9/11 everyone's like, well, comedy's done forever. And we're like, well, I don't think that's true, but like late night shows were off for a couple of weeks. I think Letterman was the first one back. When SNL came back, they had Giuliani come on to do like an intro, and then Lorne Michaels comes out and he asks if it's okay to be funny again, and then Giuliani's comment was like, well, why start now? And then Giuliani went on to be a shitty maniac for the rest of his life. But pretty funny moment from 20 years ago.
You ever see Return of the Living Dead?
Which one is that? I've seen, I think, most of them.
That's the one with the punk kids. That's the punk kids and music. It's because the whole thing with that is it's not part of the Night of the Living Dead universe. It's like an offshoot.
Okay, I know. I've not seen it, but I know what one you're talking about. I saw a trailer for it when I went to see Buckaroo Banzai at the theater where they filmed The Blob in Pennsylvania. I can't think of the name of it, but it's not that far away from me, and they do like classic film screenings sometimes, and they did Buckaroo Banzai last year. So I went, and Return of the Living Dead was like the next week. So they showed the trailer and they were talking about it a little bit before Buckaroo came on.
I recommend the movie because for one, it's a different take on zombie than most other movies. There is a slight connection to Night of the Living Dead, which they explained in the movie. The guy who actually
remember
wrote
them talking about that.
Yeah, the guy who actually wrote it is the guy that wrote Night of the Living Dead with Romero. So he kind of wrote, when he wrote it, he's like, hey, listen, I'm going to do this other storyline movie that kind of ties into this, if that's okay. Supposedly, it caused a falling out between the two of them for years. But also just the music, the style, it really encapsulates like the 80s and punk and young kids in it. But it's got a fair, decent amount of comedy, I felt in it too, because it does get put into horror comedy, but the horror aspect of it I always found is very good on the scary, and then the funny parts I found were actually genuinely funny, because when they made part two, they went too far into the wacky funny side of it and became more of a kids movie.
There was I remember in the trailer, like I kind of got that vibe that it leaned a little more into comedy than the original.
And then also that's where the whole zombie saying brains comes from in general.
Yeah.
Which is funny because that when it comes to Return of the Living Dead, I mentioned to people, and so many people tell me they've never heard of it, they've never seen it, but they've heard of the zombie saying brains thing. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I was wondering how far we'd get into this before you would mention Buckaroo Banzai.
It's only a matter of time. It is my goal to bring it up on every podcast that I ever do again in my life.
I was wondering if I should or if I should wait till you brought it up.
My 3-year-old in the past like 2 or 3 weeks has gotten very into doing things that scare her on purpose.
Oh God.
Which I mean that's why people watch horror, I think. Like they want to have the experience of being scared, but in like a
controlled
way. So my 3-year-old, I think she's a little young to start showing her horror movies, but I think she will be a horror fan when she gets older, because I'm sitting in the booth in my shed. I have a Buckaroo Banzai poster up in here. The reason it's in here is because it has the Electroids on it. So my friend Ken Plume sent me this poster, and I looked at it, I'm like, well, I can't put this up. Like the kids told me that they thought they were scary. So I'm like, well, I can't hang it up in the house. So then when I built the booth out here, I'm like, oh, I'll put it up out there. Every day my child asked me to take it down. She's like, take that poster down. I'm like, it's in a booth in a separate building that you never have to be in. She's like,
its existence.
yeah, she's like, I don't like it. I'm like, so just don't ever go in Daddy's broadcast booth. You don't need to be in there. And then we were out in the yard, and she's like, Daddy, I want to go look at the Buckaroo Banzai poster. And I was like,
oh, I thought you were going to say, Daddy, I could feel it looking at me through the wall.
She came in here to like confront her fear.
That's
she
smart
came
of
and
her.
looked at it, and she's like, we can put it up in the house. I'm like, well, no, now I like it out here. So she was like trying to lobby me to put it up inside. And then she asked to watch Buckaroo Banzai with me. A thing I had tried to get her to do before. And once she saw the Electroid, she's like, nope, I'm out. But this time she's like, all right, I'll watch it with me. Or I'll watch it, but you got to watch it with me. I'm going to put pillows all around me so that I'm safe. And she was like really into watching this movie, but like you could tell, like when the monsters are on screen, she's like genuinely a little bit afraid, but she's there with her daddy. She's got her toys. She's feeling safe. I'm like, yeah, that's nice for her. I mean, she's going to take it too far. That kid's fearless. So she's eventually going to like take it to extreme levels. I feel like we had a step ladder set up because we were doing some yard work outside, and she's like, can I climb that? And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, go ahead. And she would like go up one rung and look like a little afraid, but then she would do the next rung, and she was like going up. She wanted to go up and over the top of it. I was like, no, you can't. You can't do that. That's unsafe.
But
My nephew, who's 8, his sister, who's 22, she keeps saying that he's a little goth. Because, and I'm just hoping she doesn't go the route he's been going. He just watched The Exorcist, I think this week. He watched it, and I remember one time he started choking on a potato chip, I was told. First words out of his mouth while he's choking, where's it, Mom, help, I'm choking. Just walked right up to his mom, unable to breathe, and just goes, I'm gonna die, very calmly. Like, this is the end, Elizabeth.
yeah,
He said he wanted to play the game of life to his cousin, my other nephew. He goes, I want to play life so this way I can get a family and then become a serial killer and then die.
Yeah, kids are creepy all day, every day. That's been like my whole act is mostly just talking about my kids, and it is because I'm afraid of them and I'm worried that I might do a bad job raising them. But they say creepy stuff all the time, even when they don't mean to. And then now I feel like my 3-year-old's been doing it on purpose lately. Like she's getting scary by choice.
Now, do you have things that you collect that they like?
No. Everything I collect, they don't like. I've tried so hard to get them into things that I enjoy, and more so with my older daughter, because I realized like that's not the way to go. Like I love Star Wars. I would love it if my children love Star Wars, but I feel like if I cram it down their throat,
they're not going
Yeah.
to be into it.
so I would like try that with my kids. Like, you guys want to watch Star Wars? And they're like, no, why? Who cares? They've watched the original trilogy now, I think. But when they added the Ewok TV movies to Disney Plus, I was so excited because those are my favorite Star Wars movies. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I cannot wait. Because I had them on VHS, but with like my VCR ate the one tape, and we don't have a VCR anymore, so I couldn't show it to them. And I was so excited because it's like, oh, they'll love this because it's just adorable teddy bears having an adventure. And they could not care less about the Ewoks. And I'm like, come on. Like, can just give Daddy this one thing? Can we just watch like this movie that he loves?
Be happy.
Yeah.
At the same time, I want to say be happy that they're not into the stuff you collect. Because I don't have kids, but I have my nephews, and one of them lives with me, and then the other one's literally just across town. So we're almost always at his house. And I mean, it's no secret, my brother passed away almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And when he passed, one of the things they started discussing a little later on was, what are you doing with the guitars? Can I get one of the guitars? Can I get one of the guitars? So they start divvying up stuff, which is understandable.
Sure.
But then somehow the conversation goes to, when Ed dies, who's going to get this? And I'm in the room. I'm listening. I'm like, but they're talking like if I'm not there. And the two big things that I actually have are Ghostbusters stuff because I was big into Ghostbusters, and they're discussing, well, who's going to get the firehouse, and they're like, well, which one, the new Lego one or the original old school toy? But they're all talking about it as if they've got plans to kill me off or something. Like this is all planned out, and it gets and this is an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old, and then as they're discussing stuff, the 15-year-old gets involved. Then the 18-year-old walks in like, oh, I don't really want anything unless it's like valuable. So I'm older, so I claim dibs on anything valuable first.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I don't collect a lot of stuff. I will like amass things sometimes. Like I like comic books, but I'm just as happy to like read them digitally online and then not have a big pile of them in my house. But it's not even really a collection. Like I didn't seek out specific ones. It's just like, I buy a comic book and then I don't want to throw it away, so I just put it in a box with the other comic books, and now I have, a couple hundred comic books just sitting in a closet. And when my older daughter started to read, I was like, oh, like I have a bunch of comics if you want to look at comics. And then I'm like, oh, these are like Batman in the 90s comics. These aren't for these aren't for you 7-year-old. But so then I went out and like we found comics like that she would enjoy. But yeah, I don't have a ton of stuff. I'm like looking around my booth here, trying to think if there is anything I like genuinely collect.
I mean, I have comics, not a lot. My problem is if I come across something that's horror related in comic, I end up buying it, and then I never read it. I have a whole stack here of horror related.
Yeah, I'm terrible at that too. I'm such a slow reader because of the ADD that I'll get some. Like I have the graphic novel Bubble, which was based on a podcast that I really liked. I'm sure it is a great graphic novel, but I've not gotten through it. We brought up Buckaroo Banzai. They just put the sequel novel out last year. I've had it since I think it came out in October. I've had it from the day it came out, and I've read maybe 50 pages of it. Mainly because I'm a slow reader. I don't have a ton of time to read, and also like as much as I love the movie Buckaroo Banzai, the books because Earl Mac Crouch, who wrote the movie, wrote both the sequel novel and like the novelization of the first movie, and man, they're dense books to try to get through. It doesn't like flow off the page. It is.
And to anyone listening, I just want to reiterate. I want people to know this man loves Buckaroo Banzai.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
You have the red glasses.
I do. I bought red glasses specifically I found the closest ones I could to Buckaroos. I have I'm wearing a different pair, but they're black. But I got them to look like Jeff Goldblum's glasses in that movie. I haven't found a good pair to match Perfect Tommy's, but that's
no. Perfect Tommy, you got to get the outfit.
Yeah, I need a jacket that matches my shirt and tie, just one cloth throughout. He's my favorite character. Perfect Tommy. He's great.
I keep wanting to read it because I'm like, I know there's so much going on in the movie, and I'm like, there is definitely more going on when you read it. There has to be. There's no way knowing how movies and scripts work.
I finally got through Across the Eighth Dimension, the book, and it took a while, but it is like, because there's what I love about Buckaroo Banzai is that you do feel when you're watching the movie like there's way more going on in this world than I'm being shown. Like I would love to learn more about it, and then you find out that there's no more. Like that's all you get until 35 years later when they finally put the book out. But in the novelization of it, there is more details on things. Some of it I think works better on the page than it did in the movie. Yeah, I don't know. I love it so much. And it's weird because I only saw it for the first time like 3 years ago. It's not like a holdover from, it's not like the Ewok Adventure, which I love.
Really?
Just because I loved it when I was a kid. Buckaroo Banzai I didn't see until my second kid was born.
I honestly thought it was something you would admit into for like years, like as a child.
It's pretty recent. It's one of those things where like I had heard of it and I never had the chance to see it because it wasn't like widely distributed for a long time before streaming came out. Like there wasn't a big DVD release, or even VHS cassettes were pretty limited. It was actually because of the movie Ready Player One, which I didn't like, but at the end of the movie, because he gets like different outfits in the virtual world in that, so he gets Buckaroo's suit to like go meet the girl. And she's like, "Is that the suit from Buckaroo Banzai?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he was like impressed that she knew that. And I'm like, I've heard of that movie, and I really like that suit.
I remember that scene. Wow.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, that's a nice suit. And then that night, or like the next night, I was up with my daughter who wouldn't sleep because she was a month old or whatever. And so I'm sitting there on the couch with her in the middle of the night, and I'm scrolling through Amazon Prime Video, and I saw they had Buckaroo Banzai on there. I was like, oh, that's that movie. All right, I'll watch that. And then 15 minutes into it, I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. This is my favorite movie now, even before it was over.
Imagine you holding a baby in your arms, sitting at the edge of your seat, bent forward with your mouth open, your eyes wide, just like,
yeah,
barely breathing as you watch this.
The opening is a mess. It's very confusing. There's a lot going on, and it's hard to follow the opening. But then the next scene is the Hong Kong Cavaliers concert, and when Buckaroo stops it because he hears somebody crying, I'm like, this is the best movie, I think, because as a performer, like I relate to that so hard. Of like, all the shots are everybody so into this concert, and they're like rocking out, and they're doing bad 80s dances. And there's one person in the audience not having a good time. So Buckaroo's like, shut it down. We need to figure out why this lady's not enjoying this more. Because I did a show the other night at a college, and there was one kid in the audience who just like pretty clearly wasn't into it. And he's the only person I paid attention to for the whole rest of the show. Like, why? What's your problem, 19-year-old? Why aren't you liking this as much as I think you should?
I have, like you said, you had the book and you didn't even read them. I have the Return of the Living Dead 2 graphic novel. It's a continuation of the original story, because in part 2, the movie didn't really continue from the first movie.
Okay.
And this novel, now I have it. It was actually written by one of the actors that was in the movie, because nothing else, they never continued the story, so he wrote it. I have it. I've had it for maybe a year now. I have yet to open and look actually into one of the inside it.
Yeah.
I own it.
Got me the comic book version that Marvel put out, and that was 2 issues. And like, I can read comics a lot. I have a much easier time reading comics than prose, so I got through those pretty quick. But then for Christmas this year, my sister-in-law got me like I forget what it was. It was a different comic book version. And I don't know if it was just the 2 issues together, but I haven't like looked at it. But I've been surprisingly busy with comedy now that things are opening up again, which is a good problem to have, I guess. But I will probably just like frame that and put it up somewhere.
You ever heard of it's a YouTube channel called Minty's Comedic Arts?
No.
It's not necessarily comedy. It's I believe it's an Australian guy, probably about your age. Australian guy who does not necessarily movie reviews, but he tends to do more like the top 10 things you didn't know about this movie.
Oh, okay.
And I think earlier, was this year or last year, he did do one on Buckaroo Banzai, and he does research and gets information about it. I should send you the link to the Buckaroo Banzai one and see how much of that you're like, I knew that.
I'll have to look it up, yeah, because I have 2 Google alerts set up. And one is for Buckaroo Banzai, and the other is for my own name, because I'm a narcissist. And I get a lot more hits on the Buckaroo Banzai one than I do on the one for me. But I get genuinely excited whenever like an article like that pops up somewhere, somebody's like, hey, I'm just going to write about Buckaroo Banzai for some reason. There were a lot this past year because the sequel novel came out. But yeah, like, I don't know. I love stuff like that. My daughter, my oldest daughter watches a lot of like that stuff for Disney things where it's like, oh, like 10 things you didn't know about this Disney princess. And so like me, like she likes Disney movies, but she likes learning things, I think more. Like she's deep into Harry Potter right now. And she's read the books, but now she's got like a rule book for Quidditch, and she's got like a spell book and all kinds of like she's real getting deep into the details. And that's, I think, the fun part of being a nerd is
the part that all the jocks miss out on.
Have like extra research. Yeah, dumb jocks, take that. We're gonna read books we don't have to read.
And then to wrap things up, Jerk Magazine.
It's Jerk the Magazine.
Oh, it's Jerk the. Oh, I'm sorry. You don't got to be a jerk about it.
I only pointed out because Jerk Magazine is something else.
It's not.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Jerk
not porn?
Magazine is, I believe, a student production in Syracuse University, but it's like social awareness. They're like, we want to jerk people out of like the mainstream I'm like, I just want to tell people that they're jerks. Like they're two very different things. So I put the in there to try to delineate they're different. But
no, but I like how you differentiating that every time. If anyone just calls it Jerk Magazine, call you doing that kind of makes them remember it more too. No, it's Jerk the Magazine.
Yeah. Well, it was I created this magazine when the pandemic hit because all my stand-up shows got canceled and I didn't have anything to do. And I thought I had the idea actually a long time ago, but it seemed like so much work. Because the idea is it's a magazine that you pay me to send to people that you don't like. So then they just go to their mailbox one day and there's a magazine in there about what a big dumb jerk they are. Because that's a funny idea to me. I'm like, that'd be really funny if somebody did that. But then I'm like, who's got the time to write a whole magazine about jerks? And then when a global pandemic struck, I was like, it turns out I do. I've got the time. So I did a Kickstarter for it that was more successful than I thought it was going to be. So I like branched out and I was going to do 4 issues, which I still will. I think the original plan was to do 4 issues in a year, and there's no way that will happen. Mostly because, like I said, ADD, but also like supply chain issues have slowed things down in terms of like working with printers. And then also just it was more expensive to produce than I thought it would be. So in terms of like paying contributors, like fill out stuff with articles. So the other 3 issues are coming. The next one is a calendar.
You think with subject matter like that, you think you can get advertisers into it?
I did have a couple people reach out, but then when I explained to them what it was, because it's not like a true periodical. The idea is like it's a novelty thing. Like when I had the idea, and before I was going to do more issues, it was just going to be the one issue, and then that just gets sent out to people as like a one-off. And then I was like, it would be funnier if they kept coming. So we were going to do 4. The next one's a calendar, but it's not a 2022 calendar. It is just like a Jerk the Magazine calendar that is evergreen because it is not correct or helpful. Like the dates are wrong. I think I took 1 month out. 1 month doesn't have Tuesdays. All the holidays are in the wrong spot.
So the calendar itself is being a jerk.
Yeah, like because it's a calendar for jerks. So you don't want to give them a good calendar that they could use. You want to give them a bad calendar that's going to make them late for stuff.
I gotta say the name though, Jerk the Magazine, kind of does lend itself almost like Spaceballs, because now you can do, I don't feel like doing a magazine, I'm going to do a pamphlet. Jerk the pamphlet.
Yeah,
Jerk
that's coming handy because it was a lot of work putting like an actual issue of a magazine together. So now I can do like issue 2 is Jerk the calendar. Jerk for Kids is, I don't know if that's going to be 3 or 4, but it's basically going to be Highlights magazine, but for jerks. So it's like Goofus and Goofus. I forget what I called them. It's not, it's Goobus and Worse Goobus, where it's, instead of Goofus and Gallant, where it's like one good kid and one bad kid, it's just like a bad kid and a worse kid. It's the like find the differences in these two pictures, but they're exactly the same. Like stuff like that. Like, because my kids read Highlights, so I have a lot of points of reference.
Is there a web? I'm trying to remember if there's a web. I know you have your website, just glentickle.com. Is there a website for the magazine?
If you go to jerkthemagazine.com, that's where you can order it. The magazine's not up there. It probably will be now that it's been out for a while, but...
And we can easily find you at literally just Glen Tickle at Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. Literally, just look for Glen, like your ex says. It's not a common name.
Yeah, there's 2 others, and I try to beat them to whatever social media thing pops up. I think there's another Glen Tickle in the United States. I think he had the MySpace account that he offered to me at one point, because he's like, I'm not really using it. And he's like, I know you got kind of a brand. And I'm like, oh, I don't think I would use it either, because it was after Justin Timberlake bought it and was trying to bring it back. That's when he's like, hey, I have the username if you want it. And I don't remember if I took him up on it. I mean, I don't think, is MySpace even around at all still? I don't know.
It's more of a music related thing, and even then I really doubt anyone goes. I mean, I have my band on there, but no one's hits on anything. Yeah. Even big bands, I haven't seen any hits on there.
Who knows?
But if you need help, let me know. If you need help on your crusade against the other Glen Tickles, I'm on your side.
Well, the other one in the US, he's been more receptive. I reached out to both of them years ago when I was doing a talk show that you were on. You were on, pretending to be on TV back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But I was going to interview them on the show, but we were going to do it live. And when I called, the Australian Glen Tickle didn't want anything to do with it. And then the other one was going to do it. And then when I called him from the stage, he didn't pick up. So I don't know. There's not really a beef with the other Glen Tickles. They might not like me, but I think they're both fine.
Well, just as long as they don't turn on you.
Yeah. I do a joke about how there's 2 of them, and I say that I keep track of them in case there's ever a Highlander situation, but I don't mean it. I'm not really going to behead you, other Glen Tickle. No,
that's why you got me. I'll do it.
Yeah. Ed's coming for you, though.
I'll take the quickening. It's going to sound grim. Any last words?
No. Just that it was great talking with you, friend.
Yes. Same here, Jerk the Magazine creator. All right. Make sure you guys check out Jerk the Magazine, Glen Tickle on all social media. Make sure see if you can find, where he wears the red glasses.
Yeah. Follow me on YouTube. I'm going to be trying to put more stuff up there, like longer clips.
Oh, okay,
things.
Good. And there's always TikTok, where you seem to have a consistent flow of things.
Yeah. TikTok, I think, is where I have the biggest following of anything. But it's like short clips, so I'm kind of limited in what I can put up there. So I'm trying to take what you can get. YouTube more, but I don't know. We'll see if it happens.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, bud. I got to run because my wife's got to go to work.
All right, cool. I'll talk to you later then.
Bye, friend.
Bye.